Welcome to Outdrive, folks. I'm your host, Cliff Callis, and each week I'm bringing you actionable marketing insights you can apply to reach, connect with, and convert rural American consumers. Outdrive is powered by Callis, a full-service advertising agency with a focus on marketing rural America. Callis offers a wide range of integrated marketing services, including website development, search engine marketing, social media, video, and digital. We develop strategic and creative campaigns to build your brand and your business, and you can learn more about us at ecallis.com. Now join me in the front seat as we head out on the road to success. Let's go.
Hey folks, welcome to Outdrive. We've got another great story to share with you today about life and work in rural America. If you listen to our podcast regularly, you know how big we are on strategy and how we incorporate strategy into everything we do in our advertising agency and in business. Good strategy can be the difference between success and failure. And I found over the years that some people and some organizations are better at it than others. One of those people who is great at it and who knows how to develop and use strategy to accomplish objectives is our guest today. Steve Dust is an old friend of mine, one of my first clients, and a guy who has worked hard to help develop the Midwest economy. He's worked in economic development, contracting, real estate, foundation management, and government. Today, he's guiding clients with strategic insights and solutions as a management consultant with his firm Waterfront Corporate Services, LLC. Stay tuned as Steve and I discuss the changes in economic development structure and marketing over the years, the value of strategic-based client relationships, and a tool he uses to clarify strategic direction. Plus, we'll get his take on living and working in rural America from the Lake of the Ozarks in Missouri. Welcome to Outdrive, Steve.
Well, thanks for asking. I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad you're here as well. Been looking forward to visiting. We're recording on a Monday morning after a busy weekend for some and not so busy weekend for others here in Missouri. Certainly today, we've got a lot to talk about. I want to talk about your career in economic development and construction and real estate. And I want to talk about strategy because I've always thought of you as a great strategist.
Oh, thank you. I enjoy it.
And I want to talk about, Lake of the Ozarks and rural Missouri and everything we have to offer out here. But let's first get started by letting you tell our audience a little bit about Steve Dust.
Oh, sure. The way I have to start is saying I'm a husband of 47 years to Donita. She's a retired speech and language pathologist, got her degree from the University of Central Missouri. I'm a dad. My oldest son is Alex. He's a professional chef at the University of Northern Iowa in Cedar Falls. And my youngest son, Andrew, is an economist, but he is also an entrepreneur. And he and his partners just exited their first startup together very nicely. And so in fintech area, and he is now working for the acquirer, an operation called Marquetta. He lives in Chicago. I'm a Midwesterner. I was born in first years in South Chicago. And then we moved to the Ozarks in South Central Missouri, down in Wright County, Missouri. And then to mid-Missouri and eastern Kansas, and 27 years in Iowa, and now to the Lake of the Ozarks. In terms of education, I'm an MBA from the University of Iowa. I got my bachelor's degree from UCM also, University of Central Missouri. And I love corporate finance and macro econ. That's what I specialized in my master's degree and what I've used mostly in my career. My career spanned economic development at the local, regional, state level. I've done economic development and business development for a public utility, expanded a commercial and industrial real estate operation, been in construction, and as you know, and expanded that operation into Iowa, been a CEO of a private foundation, most recently served as an almost full-time strategy director for a new planned community here at the Lake of the Ozarks that encompasses about 2,000 acres. So that's kind of in a nutshell.
You and I have known each other a long, long time. You certainly have had a brilliant career. I've been highly impressed with all the different facets of things that you've touched. And I think it's awesome that you're able to get to the lake, because I know you've owned property there for a number of years and
yes,
always talked about wanting to be there full time. And Now that you're there full time, how does it feel?
Oh, it feels great, Cliff. We've been here 3 years now. I get to start and end every day looking out at a quiet cove on a relatively quiet arm of the lake. And the lake is literally about 100 feet from my office door. So thoroughly enjoy it here. Spending a lot of time getting to understand and know the flow of business at the lake. It's entirely different kind of economic geography than I have been used to over my career. It's tourism, it's water-based industry, and an amazing range of housing and commercial development for such a relatively small area. When I say small area, it's like a 30, 40-mile radius. So it's just a different place, but it's a great location. I'm an hour from Sedalia or Jeff City. I'm in Missouri. I'm a couple hours from Columbia, or Kansas City rather, Springfield, St. Louis. So it's just a terrific location and a very high quality of life.
Yeah, I think the high quality of life is really what jumps out to me. And certainly the prime location right in the heart of everything is part of that. I think a lot of times people from outside of the state that aren't familiar with the Lake of the Ozarks maybe don't understand the nuances. And certainly, you've got a quiet side of the lake, where you are, where we used to be, but you also have this bustling commercial side of the lake with, ocean going yachts and power boats and bars and restaurants on the water and resorts, and you get it all. So you get the quiet side if you want that. You get the busy side. And there's a lot going on right there. I don't know whether it's true or not, but supposedly Mark Cuban was at the lake last weekend. People posted pictures of his jet. And, I think the lake is really generating lots of interest from around the country. COVID probably was the initial stimulator for that. Now there's some, major developments going on. What are a couple things that have really caught your attention?
Just to go kind of down a list, work from home professionals is the first thing. We have seen, because of the COVID period and the attention that the lake life received from national media, which was not meant to be necessarily positive, but turned out to be a huge positive for us. We got the attention of a lot of people who were looking for a different way of living. When they came here and found the quality of housing, quality of life, the broadband that is equal or superior to any place else that you would live, thanks to some very foresighted utilities in the area, they came. And they have come in droves. Now, the part that bothers me a little bit, Cliff, is that it's all still anecdotal. We don't have the data on it yet, but we have the anecdotal evidence of meeting people, of seeing their impact, of seeing the new demands in the market, and so forth. I'd tell you that healthcare is a strength at the lake, but at the same time, they're like every other healthcare market that is struggling, rural healthcare market that is struggling to find talent. We have to compete strongly with metro areas for the talented people to get them in. But once they get here again and see the kind of quality of life that they have with very little degradation of income potential and a good solid market, they often make the decision to come here. We're starting to see a number of next generation destinations appear in the development scene. The lake kind of evolved from the strip at Bagnell Dam, and then in the 60s and 70s, you saw the development of major resorts in the first big subdivision communities along the lake. Then you saw the high-end housing, boats and bars kind of begin to emerge on the lake. In 1998, the community bridge, a toll bridge opened, which really connected what you call the quiet side, everybody calls the quiet side of the lake, and the Highway 54, the east side of the lake. When that bridge opened, you created a regional market. And at that point, there was the condo explosion of the early 2000s, and real retail development occurred because national retailers could come to this market, examine it as a total marketplace, and make the investment. We've seen the Ozark International Raceway occur. That's a 2-mile plus road track that is really it's only been open a year, getting international accolades for how tough it is and so forth. It's a world-class facility. We're seeing the redevelopment of malls like every other city is, but that's underway here. That's under contract and under planning. Just a few weeks ago, announced a $350 million project called Oasis at Lakeport. And that's going to be a lakeside mixed-use development that includes rides, amusement park type rides, hotels, and Marriott has announced there, an amphitheater, marina, boardwalk, all the kind of signature facilities that you would expect to see in a place like that. And then, as I mentioned, there's an emerging retail, residential, institutional area in Camdenton that's almost 2,000 acres in size. The marketplace is also going through the decision-making process of, do we want a casino or not? And we have 2 proposed developments to push that decision along. So you just see all kinds of things happening at the lake. That's really pushing it, as I say, into that next generation of development and identity, as well as industrial development, which everybody kind of looks over because of the dominance of the tourism industry.
Well, there are a lot of exciting things going on down there. And, we've been enjoying the lake benefits for a number of years and, watched over the last 3 or 4 or 5 years as things have really blown up. And yet I've had people who have been down there a long time saying, really, this is just the beginning, that there are still plenty of opportunities out ahead for us. What sounds like you've really gotten into understanding the dynamics of the economy, the marketplace, the people of the Lake of the Ozarks since you became a full-time resident and business person there. And now you've, spun up a consulting business called Waterfront Corporate. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, Waterfront Corporate Services is the name I picked for my practice. Waterfront is about the place, of course, as I mentioned. Corporate Services is about the approach. We're bringing expertise to a client that they don't have in-house. Every business can reach out and grab an attorney or a CPA or an investment manager, even coaches, but not necessarily, someone to advise on the strategic trajectory of the business or organization or its assets is not easily or readily available to many business owners, especially small and medium-sized business owners. And that's the niche I fill. And I'm not there to sell anything else. So I am there strictly to advise them or help them implement on their strategic objectives. So the way I say it is that I deliver strategic advisory and project implementation services to owners and senior executives of medium-sized businesses, and that includes nonprofits and local governments. And I end up focusing on establishing sound growth or right-sizing strategies. More often than not, it's growth, but sometimes it's how do we get ourselves out of this operation or this kind of a function that really doesn't fit, but it's legacy, and we have to do it right. Sometimes that's the question. And the unique part of it is that I'm not just a consultant in terms of think, but I do. I am perfectly willing, given the right circumstances and kind of project, making sure that it fits with me as well as the client. I like to be the person that can not only help them develop a strategy around an issue or a market or an opportunity, but also implement. So that's, and that translates, just to get down to real, it's a business plan, it's a strategic plan. We're working on new locations or an expanded facility. Maybe it's a business acquisition. Maybe it's, hey, somebody has approached me and said, let's do a joint venture. How do I make that decision? Or a business alliance. How do I integrate this thing? I bought this business and it's remote. How do I integrate operations? How do I get an economic incentive? How do I go to the city or the state and get what other guys have gotten, other people have gotten? Even community relations. Too often we see businesses say, okay, I got a donation budget of X number of dollars and I'm just going to spend it first come, first serve. And when it's gone, it's gone. And that's the wrong way to approach it. Let's say, what is it that you want to accomplish in the community to position your business and to do good? And then let's talk about how to allocate those dollars, how to make the decisions when a request is made, and evaluate that. So it can really be a fairly broad spectrum of issues that we get to work on.
Yeah, sounds like it. Well, I like how you, whether you knew it or not, kept using the word how, because I always think that how and strategy really go together. How do you get things done? How do you do this? And I like that you mentioned development of strategy, because people approach that in a variety of different ways based upon their experience, their expertise, whatever training they've had or education they've had.
Right.
And of course, you've always been a strong strategist, but what kind of tools are you using today to help people clarify strategic direction?
There's really one that I focus on with my clients. And sometimes I talk to them a lot about it, and other times we just do it, use it, and it may be transparent to them. But it's called strategic scenarios. A strategic scenario, it was developed in the late 40s, post-World War II, at the Rand Corporation, adopted by business in the 70s, really introduced by Shell Oil and some of their executives. Scenarios help you take the long view in a world of uncertainty. They're stories. It's a tool that allows us to put our perceptions in an order about what the future might look like for your business. But it's all based around decisions that need to be made by the business now, or issues to be dealt with, by identifying trends and factors that are uncertain but knowable. So we may not know how it's going to end up, but we can do research to find out where it might go. These are not predictions. We're not saying that we are going to do X at the end of this or be at X at the end of this. These are still uncertainties. But based on what we can find in our research, we're going to answer the question. Sometimes I'll finish my sentence, but sometimes we just say, if I'd only known that, I would have done something differently. Well, many of those answers to if I'd only known that are knowable and findable. And what we want to do is research that helps the business or the organization answer that kind of a question beforehand, incorporate that into a story about how your decision today can play out with that knowledge. And we build 2 of those, sometimes 3 if it's a complex issue, but usually only 2, because if you get more than that, then you're just making stuff up. So we build these scenarios and use them to help make strategic decisions today, and then adjust those scenarios as time goes on. That is a huge tool that I have found extremely helpful in making today's planning seem more real. It's not just the rote practice of let's create a plan and our goals are A, B, and C. Well, what's behind A, B, and C? What is it that we expect to play out? Okay, what are those factors and determinants? Well, things like demographics. Think about the people who didn't see, I'm going to use Harley Davidson as an example. Think of the people at Harley Davidson that did not see they were going to lose a lot of sales when boomers hit 50.
Mm-hmm.
Or anything else that was relying on boomers to continue in a pattern that they had for 30 years, but didn't. And that's the kind of thing that we want to look for. What are demographics doing to you? What is market acceptance doing to you? What is culture doing to you? That looks like it's either a trend that's going to impact you or one that's going to be sustained. So I can go on forever there, but I think that too often strategy is too confined to just writing down goals for the next couple of years. And that's just not adequate to really drive the kind of growth that most businesses and organizations are capable of, nor is it adequate to address some of the big issues that businesses already recognize and just don't know how to handle.
Well, I like the way that you expressed that. We actually went through some scenario planning, both internally for our agency, and then we've taken a client or two through it as well. And I agree, very effective approach. And, the thing that I really liked about it the most, because I have been called a dreamer before, is it really does take you out of the box. You're not making decisions in this confined area. You're now sort of dreaming or thinking about what could happen, and then trying to figure out, okay, if this does happen, how are we going to move? What do we need to be doing now, put in a place to make things happen down the road? And, I could see bringing on somebody like you with your talents and experience to guide that process and the advantages and benefits of doing that. Boy, through that process, you really are going to get to know your clients, aren't you?
You very much do. And that's why I emphasize that I'm there for the client. I'm not selling anything else. I am there to help them. I'm an objective viewer and worker. I'm bringing my experience, but I don't have any internal biases that would impact the direction of the work. So I am there to build the most likely and implementable plan that we possibly can, or project.
So how do you think that relationship based on strategy impacts that relationship?
I think very much, because one of the things that I'll emphasize to my clients is that their view has to be on their customer's customer. Or if you're on a business to consumer, what's impacting your consumer, and building backwards from that. So if you do that, if you will put your view into the seat of your customer's customer, or at home for the consumer, then you will build a strategy that continues to build your business. But if you build it on the basis of transactions, then that's a very shallow pool of customers, and it's a very unpredictable pool of customers. But if you understand how decisions are being made down the line that are impacting your clients, then you can help them in addition to sell them something, thing or service.
Yeah, well, that all makes sense. And, you're speaking to the choir right here, buddy. And I think what you're describing then is, what kind of marketing plans are you going to put into place to help you execute these decisions you make? And
absolutely, it feeds the marketing plan by all means.
Absolutely. And so what you're describing is, marketing to customers. And earlier, you kind of took us through some of the types of customers and clients that you're working with. Mm-hmm. How are you marketing your services?
Mine is very strongly word of mouth. People who have used my services that are willing to share that story, affiliates and alliances of my own, business bankers, CPAs that specialize in business growth, people who, on the nonprofit side, people who do fundraising are often asked to help with strategy, and they're not well equipped to do that, so they call on me. So all kinds of affiliates. But then directly too, you folks at Callis have been helping me build a website that I think is going to be very significant in my positioning and my growth, as well as social media. To give you an example of what didn't work, I tried paid media. I tried to sponsor some spots that gave people information that was useful to them. And what I found was that it simply wasn't reaching the people that made decisions that I was looking for. And so it brings up that question that I can pose back to you as marketing consultant. How do I reach the thousands of potential clients that are within 30 miles of me every weekend? It's one thing to reach the people who live here and do business here, but my goodness, we just talked about Mark Urban landing his plane a week ago. He's not necessarily my target, but there are people who own significant businesses who are in my target category that land here, are here every weekend that I need to figure out how to cut. So that's primarily the way that a consultant like me can do that, is strongly work the word of mouth and networking in the area, build on affiliates, and then build on web and social media tools.
Yeah, well, you're going about it the right way, and you did that. You did ask the $1 million question: how do I reach my potential customers?
There you go.
Certainly, you got to go where they are. I think you're doing that with the approach that you're doing. I know recently you spoke to an economic development group, and certainly with your background, you're a great speaker for that, and you're a good communicator as well. So I would think that getting in front of organizations like that is a wonderful opportunity to position yourself, build credibility for yourself, and generate some possible leads. Tell us about that particular presentation and anything else like that you've got lined up.
That particular presentation was for the Missouri Employment Conference, and it was 200 plus HR people and business owners who are very interested in the topics of how do I recruit, retain talent? How do I deal with the talent issues of the day? And my message to them was that HR is economic development. And they need to be at the table with business strategy, with community strategy to help them with the HR function. Because all eyes are on how do we recruit, how do we retain, how do we upskill talented people in our operation, regardless of location and size? And that's a big question. And they've got all those same strategic issues bearing down on them as a department that the business has generally. And human beings are demographics. Just take a look at demographics, what's happening there, and other public policy areas. And so I talked to them about that, how to get to the table and how to be effective and a leader when they do get to that table from the HR perspective, because it is so important. I mean, these are folks that can nudge the finance people over now when they're talking about how they're going to implement HR strategies or what their strategies are going to be. And then I described some things that economic development groups are doing to try to help them recruit and retain and upskill, and how they can participate, how they should ask for a place at that table as well. So that was a great experience, and I hope I helped that audience. It's a huge issue for all of us, how to attract and retain and upskill talented people wherever we might be and whatever business we may be in. Good experience.
Absolutely. Well, I'm sure that you did bring a lot of value to that group. I think your perspective of HR is economic development is unique. And, people think about infrastructure and they think about location and they think about traffic patterns, but it really does come down to people. And there are so many people that I talk to today. And, and I like to talk business, I said, how's business? That's such a great question for anybody that's in it. And, for most people that I talk to, business is good. But you know what? It'd be great if I could just find a few more good people, and everybody kind of has the same story. So I think, if you're in a situation where you have the opportunity to create some innovative and effective ways of attracting and retaining good people, you're going to be in a unique position.
And words, as you know, in your business, by all means, words are important. And I choose and I encourage others to use the word talent as opposed to just workforce or labor force, because you're looking for a talented person, not just somebody who can fog a mirror. And it may be different levels of talent, different kinds of talent, whatever the case may be. But let's talk about talent, because that puts your mind in a different frame than if you're talking labor force. The way I say it is I'm talking about Camry khakis and Panera rather than pickups, lunch bucket, and blue jeans. And you've got to have that frame of mind. But yeah, it is an issue for every business that opens their door every morning. And, one of the things that you and I we've all seen, businesses that aren't opening as long, their open hours aren't as long because they can't find people. Their menu has shrunk because they can't find people sometime, so it's affecting different businesses in different ways, but there is a solution. There are solutions, and we just have to work to get to them.
Agreed. Well, I want to kind of vary off into, our podcast topic, is marketing to rural America. And that's really what we've been talking about for the last 30 minutes. But when I say the words rural America, it means different things to different people. What's it mean to you?
Well, I've had the opportunity to start and spend most of my career in rural or almost rural areas in smaller urban areas. To me, it comes down to values. We are people who hold values very strongly and very high. And that is the first filter through which everything gets put, is our personal and our family and our faith values. Common sense. No matter what kinds of tangents you see people take in the media, the national media, or in their online presence, people of all kinds of different viewpoints come together in rural areas and approach any issue with a common sense answer. It has to make sense for everybody or most everybody in order for it to be a good solution. So we're used to solving problems together and with common sense in rural areas, and that's something to be valued. I also think that in rural areas, community is top of mind, and community means, we use that word a lot, the community of this or the community of that, but rural areas really embody community, where we're involved because our involvement is needed to move the community forward or to keep it together even. And it's neighbors helping neighbors on the issue of the day. When somebody needs something, neighbors are there and neighbors can be used in the broader sense than the neighborhood. But we're all in it together in a rural area, and we all appreciate the role that each plays in the area, and we're all in there together. So rural values are really what holds us all together, I think.
Absolutely. And I like how you describe that. And, it kind of plays to the mindset. It's not a geography.
No.
It's not an urban-rural divide or anything like that. It's just really, it's a way of life. And
that's well put.
Living out here in the country, I get the opportunity to experience that. And yet, I think cities that really fall into rural America, it's kind of bizarre that it would be expressed that way, but I do really believe that. And, you grew up in South Side of Chicago, I know, and then Southern Missouri, and you lived in Iowa and now at the Lake of the Ozarks. How do you see rural America changing?
Well, just going back to what you just said, rural America is not small anymore. We have taken on every attribute of an urban area because of our connections than an urban area, but we remain rural in our perspective and in our geography sometimes, most of the time. So rural isn't small anymore at all. And what I love, I get as an aside, my youngest son lives in a neighborhood in Chicago that is very much a neighborhood, and it could be taken out and put in another place and it would be a community. People gather for all the same reasons. They talk about all the same things. They come to neighborhood conclusions in all the same ways. It's just terrific. And that's right in the heart. I mean, that's 10 blocks from Wrigley Stadium. So Wrigley Field. But rural areas also face some huge challenges. Services are rolling up and consolidating and not always serving rural communities as well as they did in the past. Poverty is tending to be more intractable for those who are immobile, and therefore the incomes of the area for new development shows up rather poorly. So what we have to do is boost those who are willing to take the risk in our rural communities through entrepreneurship and give them the tools to serve that local market that is underneath the radar of many of the national players or regional players even. That's one of the challenges that I see. Consumer demands are changing, and because of things like work from home. Now you've got an influx of people that are really staying, by definition, staying at home, but very much influencing the local market in the way that they're spending their income. So one of the current things in economic development is called placemaking, and it's the reinvention of primarily neighborhoods and rural cities to accommodate the new demographic, which includes work from home professionals. So that's one of the things that I see really changing is work from home people going all over the country, primarily into rural areas to get that quality of life that they desire, but they also bring new demands and new opportunities with them. And rural areas, I think, respond to issues faster than urbans. We're all neighbors, like I said. We can come to a conclusion quicker because we can analyze the situation as neighbors. We don't have the factions that tend to divide larger places.
Certainly those are challenges, but you also describe really opportunities.
Yeah, the brain gain, just as we talked about demographics, brain gain and wealth that are coming with a lot of the work from home people or the entrepreneurs who are successful in the local marketplace. Clearly, that's what can drive the rebirth of smaller cities and villages or neighborhoods and industrial ops. Well, broadband, to come down to the Lake of the Ozarks, which is rural by anybody's definition, and to have the kind of broadband capacity that we have to operate with is just amazing. So to have that capacity in your rural community, neighborhood is an amazing opportunity that many are taking advantage of. And then industrial operations, with the tremendous onshoring that's occurring right now, with our country's new commitment to being the place where things are made, is reopening the opportunities that we saw 40 years ago in America for decentralization of industrial operations wherever the attributes meet. And I think, your home city of Sedalia is an excellent example of that, where you have all the attributes in a spot that really drives some significant industrial growth.
Exciting times.
They are.
I want to make sure that I don't overlook the opportunity for you to let our audience know how to find you, how to get a hold of you. If they want to engage as a client or a speaker, a facilitator, perhaps. Steve, tell us how to get a hold of you.
Well, the name is Steve Dust, D-U-S-T, and it's very easy to get a hold of me by email. It is sdust@waterfrontcorporate.com. And my phone number, which is very easy also, is 319-939-4282. That's my cell number, and that will reach me directly, and we can have a conversation about what's going on. And very soon, we'll have a web presence at waterfrontcorporate.com.
Perfect. And I know you're pretty active on LinkedIn.
Yes. So, reach out to me, Facebook, LinkedIn, either one. I focus primarily on those two. I occasionally will show up on Twitter.
Okay, very good. Well, I've really enjoyed visiting with you.
Thank you.
It's always easy to talk to you. And I've really enjoyed what we've talked about, and I think it's brought a lot of value to our audience. What else would you like to share today that you think they might find interesting or insightful?
I would say, obviously, from the conversation we've had today, one piece of advice that I give to everybody that I engage with is don't let things that don't impact your business life divert your attention. There's a lot of noise and political junk out there right now that is influential, but it may not be impactful. So try to filter that out when you're looking at your business. Think about it when you go home. But when you're at your business, let's focus on the things that are really impacting you, your customer, and your customer's customer for real. Love where you are, but be where you need to be. People get very attached to a piece of real estate or a particular zip code or a side of the lake in our instance, and that may not be where you need to be for your business to be successful. So let's talk about how you need to make that decision or analyze that issue. And then finally, I give you a quote: no amount of sophistication is going to allay the fact that all your knowledge is about the past and all your decisions are about the future. So, everything you've learned is from experience or what happened before, but we've got a future that we've got to deal with. All of our decisions are about the future. So let's make the best ones that we possibly can.
Wow, that's great advice. Good close, man.
Thanks for the opportunity, Cliff. It's always good to visit with you. What a pro.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that very much. Folks, thanks for listening to Outdrive. I hope you've enjoyed our visit today with Steve Dust, founder and principal of Waterfront Corporate Services. Come back again next week and I'll take you down the roads of rural America, where it's heaven on earth.
Thanks for taking a ride with us on Outdrive. This episode is complete, so head on over to eCallis.com for more insight you can apply to help drive your business growth. And be sure to sign up for our free monthly e-letter, Outthink, for even more helpful content about marketing to rural America. Have a great day and keep on driving.